Before we get into the actual video, I just wanted to let you guys know that a few days ago I had a shop update. So there's a handful of new items, including stickers, resin coasters, washi tape, and a couple of other things I have listed onto my site. As of right now, no single product has completely sold out, so everything is still available if any of you guys are interested in checking it out. And I also have a ton of other stuff listed on my shop just from past updates. So like I said, if you're interested in checking anything out, there is always a link in the description of all my videos, or you can just pop over to tirameowsu.bigcartel.com. I never plug my shop like this, but realistically I should, since my biggest audience is on YouTube and I don't think everyone keeps up with every single person they're subscribed to's community tabs and their community posts. So normally that's how I update on shop info and updates and stuff like that, but there you go, a little shop plug. I've still been struggling a bit lately when it comes to sitting down and making traditional art, so for me especially, that one time a month is when I work on my Patreon artwork. I normally try to do it in traditional work, sometimes I cave and do digital, but I guess it's not necessarily something I have to do, but something I have a subconscious obligation for, because I feel like my artwork is far more well known for my traditional work as opposed to my digital work, so I guess I try to do traditional pieces for Patreon prints. Saying that out loud, I realize I'm not obligated and people who support me on Patreon just want to support me. But anyways, I wanted to do this piece traditionally. It's something that I sketched out digitally because I've been feeling a lot of reduced stress when it comes to traditional art when I'm actually doing a sketch digitally, and then I use my Lightbox to transfer it over to whatever paper I want to work with and then finish the piece traditionally. So that's what I did with this piece. Unfortunately, as you can tell from the title, this is something that I did not like the outcome for. I was super happy with the sketch, like insanely happy with the sketch. I believe I initially did it with a colored graphite pencil. I think specifically it was the Prismacolor Color Race in Rose. Love that pencil. Love using that for sketches. And then I decided I wanted to do colored line art for the piece, and so I chose to do them in the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils, which are pencils that I have recently gotten into, and I love them. They're wonderful pencils. But I think I actually forgot. I do not, in fact, like the way that watercolor pieces look with a really dark and saturated color of Polychromos colored pencils as the line work. And I think that's the part of this piece that really threw it off for me. I really was not liking how it was looking. I also went with the tone of Naruto's skin was super off. If you did not know, this piece is Team 7 from Naruto, which is the main three. It's Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke. I had so much fun with this piece. I don't think I've actually ever drawn Team 7 together, so with the sketch turning out the way it did digitally and then transferred over traditionally, I was super excited about working on this piece, and pretty early on, I would say, I was like, well, this isn't turning out how I want to, and I kind of hate it, which is totally normal, and that's something that no matter what kind of artist you are, that's going to be something you go through. I decided to finish the piece and see if I could turn things around. Once I was about halfway through is when I was really giving up on this piece, not in the sense of I didn't want to try to make it better, but just the sense of mentally, I was coming to terms with the fact that I don't think I'm gonna like how this piece turns out. And in doing this piece, I was really torn between doing it digitally or doing it traditionally. I haven't been making a ton of art recently as a whole, but I've kind of reinvigorated my love for digital art lately, even in the sense of just making digital art for fun and not just for products, because I feel like a lot of the digital art I make is intended to be sold versus I just play around with traditional art, and if I make a finished piece that I'm happy with, then I can do a print, or I can try to turn it into a sticker or whatever it may be. But normally when I'm doing digital art, I'm trying to do designs for washi tape, acrylic charms, stickers, etc. So digital art has always been, well, not always, but digital art recently in the past year or two has really been a I guess business medium for me, if that makes sense, as opposed to a I'm having fun medium. And recently I realized I was doing that to myself unintentionally. It was never an intentional thing, and I was like, dang, I don't want to do that. So I started doing just regular digital art pieces for me without the intention to turn them into any kind of product. And then if it turns out nice and if it's in a format that I can turn it into something, then great. But that is no longer my intention most of the time when I'm working with digital work. So it's been really nice, and I did the sketch for this digitally, like I mentioned, and I was super happy with it. And I was kind of torn between whether or not I wanted to do it digitally or traditionally, but I settled on traditionally simply because I just have not been sitting down and doing much traditional work lately. I don't know why, it's been really stressful, and it's been so long since I've done it consistently that even working in my sketchbook kind of feels really foreign to me, which is pretty sad to think about considering how much I love traditional work, and I'm definitely trying to get back into it, but it's just been kind of a super slow start for me. It's gotten to the point where I'm like, where even are the traditional supplies that I normally reach for, and like, where do I have these things stored? So for Patreon pieces specifically, since I do a Patreon print every month, I want to try and do those traditionally for the sake of giving myself a specific piece to sit down and actually work on, so I don't go like months at a time without doing traditional work. So I really wanted to do that for this piece, and like especially at the point you're seeing right now in this process, I was just like, man, I don't like this. And I've had a couple of Patreon prints before where I wasn't happy with them and I still went ahead and I used them for the month, but I really didn't want to do that with this piece. I was so happy with how the sketch turned out. I was so happy with just the three characters together and how cute it looked and everything like that. So I still pulled through and I finished this piece to the point that I would consider it to be finished, but looking at it, I just was not super happy with it at all. So instead of trashing the idea and throwing it away, I had the choice to either redo this piece entirely, which tracing the sketch took me so long, it really isn't that big of a deal, but I was feeling extra lazy and I really didn't want to have to trace the sketch again, and the thought of doing this piece digitally was really exciting for me, so I actually chose to redo this piece and finish it digitally, which is something that I am super happy with. I'm getting so much more comfortable with digital work and kind of stylizing it in the sense of how digital art works. Not in this like sense of stylizing my art to be my style, but kind of playing around with different textures and different like techniques and stuff that you can use digitally to just change the look of your artwork. And I had so much fun doing this piece digitally. It was still fun to do traditionally because I sat down and I played with watercolors, and that's something I'm really not doing a whole lot of lately, but just not feeling the piece once I've realized I don't think I like how this is gonna turn out. Definitely put a damper on that for me, and that's totally normal. Regardless of whether or not you choose to redo a piece, there's always going to be times where you work on something and you're not happy with the outcome, and that's totally normal and that's totally fine. But I think the important thing is to look back on it and just view it as something you learn from, where you can realize, okay, I don't like this piece. Why don't I like this piece? Is it a technique I used? Is it because I didn't like the initial sketch? Is it the medium I used just wasn't right for it? And just kind of reflecting on it. And if you're in a position like I was with this one where I loved the sketch and then it kind of went downhill from there, do you want to redo this piece, whether or not it's in the same medium or a different one? Just kind of play around with it. So this is the finished traditional work, immediately followed by the finished digital work. And then, like I said, this is the Patreon print for this month. So if you're interested in snagging this at all, there will also be links alongside my shop. There will be links to my Patreon located below. I'm really happy with how the digital piece came out. It was so much fun to work with and just fun to do like slight amounts of backlighting and just like snow in the background and a little bit of glow around the lights digitally. So I'm really glad that in the end I ended up with a finished piece that I was really happy with and really proud of the final outcome, and I hope you guys like it too. I'm not like a huge hater on the traditional piece. I'll probably actually end up selling the original artwork for it. I just looked at it and I knew it definitely wasn't my best work and I could have done a lot better, so I'm really glad I redid it, and I hope you guys can kind of take that as a lesson of not giving up on pieces just because you didn't like the way it turned out the first time, or as a whole just being able to see something and be like, I'm not happy with it, and it's okay, because I know a lot of people struggle with making quote-unquote bad art, and I do too sometimes. It's hard not to, but it's not the end of the world and you can just keep making art. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.